Ms. Hafsa Karaya. You have 15 minutes also, and I request to the organizer if we can have Q&A because I think so many participants would like to have some question and answer, but it depends on the organizer. I hope they will allow. So we please welcome for your presentation.
Hello. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Um, since my name is not there, I'm just going to reintroduce myself. My name is Hafsa. You can call me Hafi. That's what my students and colleagues usually call me. Also, I've noticed you've all been sitting for quite a while now. Feel free to stand up and stretch your arms and your legs. Of course, do not hit your seatmates. So I'll be briefly talking about the landscape of mental health in the Philippines. I think it's going to be very short because I'll be reflecting some of the presentations of the previews of the three esteemed doctors a while ago. Firstly, a little bit about the Philippines. I'm just going to introduce you my country. So we're just around northeastern part of your country, Malaysia. And then we're actually composed of more than 7,000 islands, small and big ones. We are roughly a total of 109 million Filipino and only around 7 million or 6.4% are Muslims. And I'm one of those Muslims, of course. Alhamdulillah. All right. So in terms of the statistics, this is pretty similar to the one that was presented by Dr. Subandi a while ago. Around 10% or probably 10 million of the Filipinos are suffering from different mental disorders. Among these, of the 10 million, around 1 million would be those suffering from major depressive disorders. And then we have 500,000 for those with bipolar and around 200,000 for those with schizophrenia. Of course, for children, around 10 to 15% of Filipino children are suffering from different mental health disorders. That ranges from basic neurodevelopmental disorders like ASD or behavioral disorders like child depression. And then in terms of suicidal rate, prior to the pandemic, around 2 in every 100,000 Filipinos are most likely to die by suicide. After the pandemic, according to the report, that has doubled. So now we have around 4 Filipinos in every 1,000 Filipinos, 100,000 Filipinos who might die by suicide. So what are the possible causes of all of these? We have different factors, but I'm going to highlight the ones that I have observed both as a clinical practitioner and also based on what I've read and what I've heard during our national conferences in the Philippines. So the first one is that there is a shortage of mental health professionals in the Philippines. 2020, we have around 1,800. That has probably grown to around more than 2,000 right now, but still, that's relatively short, small compared to the number of Filipinos that we have to cater to. And then you also have this limited access to services. There are two main categories under this main challenge. Number one, our government lacks funding for our mental health advocacies. And number two, for those with money, even if they decide to go to a private facility to seek mental health services such as psychologists or psychiatrists, it's still expensive. For example, one hour with a clinical psychologist in the Philippines, the average would be around 1,500 pesos. In Malaysian ringgit, that's around 100. So that's 1 hour. Sometimes if your client is the mental health problem of the client is relatively severe, that might mean the client has to meet the psychologist, say every week or twice a week or once a month. In my practice, if my client has a diagnosis, as in the client has been diagnosed with major depressive disorder, for example, I have to see the client is at least once a month. So you can just imagine how much they would be spending for this access. And even if there are free, because the government or government sometimes also fund these free services, the problem is there are too many Filipinos and we have very little funding. So our free services usually are not enough for our community, for our population in the Philippines. Also, we have this stigma and cultural barriers in the Philippines. If you go to a psychologist, you're basically seen as quote unquote crazy. Or sometimes they see that they believe you have a problem. And also, the conversation about mental health always revolves around mental disorders, as in depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, but conversations about how to be emotionally healthy or how to be to have a healthy mindset, sometimes that's separated from the conversation of mental health because of this stigma and cultural barriers. And of course, lastly, we have this over reliance on Western psychology. I'm actually glad because I've observed from the previous panelists that they seem to be utilizing cultures and traditions of their countries to be incorporated with the idea of psychology. We are also trying to do that. In fact, we have Filipino psychology in the Philippines. The problem with that is um, it's still we're still growing that, we're still developing that. Also, not to mention our the Philippines, we tend to view Western and all other Western related as always superior. So it's quite hard for us to be able to differentiate our Filipino psychology from the Western psychology. So these are the main challenges in our countries when it comes to mental health. What about the opportunities? The opportunities here, the mainly we have passed different laws in order to advocate for more mental health awareness in the Philippines. The number one, probably one of the most important law that has been passed by the Philippine government would be the Mental Health Act in 2019. So it's really relatively new. That's just back in 2019. And the main goal of this has been to be to provide comprehensive mental health services to everybody. That's still a growing goal right now. And also protect the rights of those with mental health conditions. So in the Philippines, if you have been diagnosed with depression, for example, your company cannot just fire you because of that. And also you can talk to your human resource managers in order to tell them if certain work-related factors are triggering you, and as much as possible, they can actually accommodate you. What else? To establish a framework for integrating mental health into the general healthcare system. So that has been further advanced via the passing of our Universal Healthcare Act. So they extended that from mere physical health to mental health care as well. We also have this one. Maybe this. It's here. So the Philippine Psychology Act of 2009, where our mental health professionals should pass the license before they get to practice. Right now, we have licensure for psychologists. I am a licensed psychologist, and you also have licensure for psychometricians. So if you have graduated, if you have taken an undergraduate psychology major, you can take the psychometrician board exam. If you want to take the psychology board exam, you need to take a clinical master's program and major in psychology, and also take a clinical internship in a psychiatric facility. So before this passing, we do have practitioners, but they don't have the license. And the problem with no license is there's also no code of ethics. So in terms of accountability and responsibility, that's a bit questionable pretty much before the passing of this law. And then lastly, a better opportunity perhaps for the people in the Philippines in terms of our mental health landscape would be the furthering of research and data collection. This is as an answer for our over-reliance with Western psychology. I've noticed a while ago that many of the presenters have different equivalent, they have these local terms for a lot of things that are related to Western psychology. As in the Philippines, we have very limited, very few words that directly mean, that can be translated to Western psychology terms. So in a way, we are trying to address that as well with Filipino psychology. So I've said this a while ago, we have a Filipino psychology subject in most universities that's also known as Psikolohiyang Pilipino. So in here, we're trying to investigate indigenous culture, traditions, and practices, and we try to see how that might be used as an alternative to the Western psychology and Western perspective of mental health. Lastly, focus on community-based mental health programs. So instead of just going to hospitals and clinic, we actually are trying to promote every villages and small cities and towns in our country to have a place where their population, their citizens and the community can congregate to in order to help advocate for their mental health. So again, this is a growing endeavor right now, still in progress. I just want to add a little bit about the mental health among Filipino Muslims because, as I've said, there's only around 7 million in the country, but still that's large enough. The problem is when we talk about mental health conversations, when there is conversation about mental health, it's mostly centered around students and young professionals. So those are parents in their 40s and 50s. When they talk about mental health, it's not really the term mental health. They talk about faith, Islamic faith, and how to become a good Muslim. But in a way, if you actually think about it, right, there are a lot of concepts in Islam that can also be seen as concepts in psychology. The problem is we just have to be able to combine the two. Say, for example, when we talk of self-care, maybe the young ones, Gen Zs and millennials will understand that. But our parents, they might not be able to understand what is self-care. But if we talk to them about tarbiyah and tazkiyah, they might be able to get that. And also the term of positive affirmation, affirmation in general, we might understand that, the younger ones, but those who have not gone to school perhaps, or they're not that educated in terms of the academe, they might not understand what is affirmation. But I'm sure a lot of them, if not most, all, are pretty much doing this, the zikr and dua. So what might be the possible solution for that? This one.
Okay, are you going to your
So just
conclusion?
cross-disciplinary education of Islamic scholars and mental health professionals. I'm a mental health professional, but in terms of my Islamic education, that's really lacking. Of course, I pray 5 times a day. I know a lot about Islam, but the formal education, that's the problem. So maybe in the future, we'll be able to do that. I think that's all. That's my presentation.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you again, Ms. Hafi from the Philippines for sharing interesting sessions on mental health issues in the Philippines. We are already hitting the last dot of the time, and in 15 minutes time, we will have the official ceremony. With that, I was informed by the organizer, no Q&A. Sorry, don't blame me. I'm trying my best. Again, to wrap up, it seems that all the panelists has discussed and shared very interesting information. And there are a lot of messages to the government of Malaysia indeed, to our dignitaries here, whoever having the position, sesiapa juga yang ada kuasa, yang diberikan kuasa, yang dipinjamkan kuasa, sementara boleh ni, ambil tindakan to look into how serious we should pay attention into Islamic approach to integrate with the modern science, correct? And we have a lot of reference here. And I thank and congratulate Yadim and also University Malaya, Appium, not opium, Appium, for organizing this interesting intellectual discourse. And I hope everyone here will keep exploring the understanding on mental health. You can have your own session after this with our panelists if you have any interesting issues to share with. And again, I wish you all the best. And I hope Yadim and Appium will pay attention to what we have seen to empower Islamic approach in the treatment of mental health, not treatment mental illness. Mental health can be done by many professionals, and we did not mention anything about counselors. It's actually the counselors. In Malaysia, we have licensed professional counselors who are doing the preventive measure on mental health issues. And then only we go to the next level, the psychiatrists. Yeah? So again, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Awhat Pak Tang, Supervisor Datuk Dr. Abu Halim Muhammad Hussein and all esteemed panelists. Sidang hadirin, kita akan memulakan majlis perasmian Simposium Semal ASEAN 2025 sebentar sahaja lagi. Diminta semua hadirin duduk dengan tenang dan mengurangkan pergerakan keluar masuk Dewan. Terima kasih.